Good morning to those of you out there in Alaska and Hawaii and way out there on the West Coast. And good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. I'm excited today, just continuing my talk about capture. We're going to talk about how to shape opportunities. And this is a really important one to me. When I teach sales and capture, this is what I say sales is. Sales is about actually reaching out and shaping opportunities so that you have the biggest chance of winning. And so we're going to talk about that today. As we go forward, let me just share my screen. Okay, today we're going to talk about shaping the opportunities for the win. And this is fundamental to federal sales capture activity. If you're not familiar with federal sales, the way I describe it, it's really a way a lot of us describe it, but I like making it this clear. Federal sales is about business development. Among other things, it's identifying opportunities you want to go after. And then capture, which is about shaping the opportunity. That's what we're going to talk about today. And proposal management. That's taking all that early information, wrapping it together in a winning document that the government says, hey, I like that. I'm going to award the contract to you. So that's sales, BD, capture, and proposal management. All of us work together to land a contract. Sales is different than just bidding or quoting. I call it, anytime I say I call it, it really is industry. We call it in this. But in sales, there's transactional sales and there's solution sales or consultative sales, right? So transactional sales is basically I walk in, I see something, I pick it up, I give you money, I walk out. And solution selling or consultative selling is when there's a whole dialogue and it takes weeks, months, years before there's a sale made. And that's because we're consulting together. The buyer and the seller are talking together to get the best requirements defined and product or solution coming to that set of requirements. And so I just want to say that if you're not talking to the customer, you're not really doing sales, you're just doing bidding and quoting. There's nothing wrong with that. My last business, some of my most lucrative business was selling products that I had a 20% margin on. So basically, I would sell them $1 million product and pick up $200,000. That's a good day's work, but I didn't have to sell them on that necessarily, unless I went in. And I'm going to talk to you about how you can go in and do that kind of stuff. So in today's training, I'm going to cover three main things. And I'm really going to try to cover down on these with specific examples and how. So the first one is, you're going to shape the acquisition approach. And so this is basically working with the contracting officer, how they're acquiring your products and services. The second one is shaping the technical requirements, the scope of work. And then the third one is shaping the past performance. I put requirements here, but what I should have put is the past performance criteria. And so I want to shape that. That's what we're going to cover today. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. And I want to welcome you to my federal sales training where I've been teaching people like you for 20 years. Wow, sometimes I just have kind of a brain fart. I've got my topics so cruising down around that I screwed up my whole intro. But basically, I want to welcome you to the federal sales training. I've been a small business owner for 20 years. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. Part of the process is following my script of introducing my training, right? The reason I do this is because process goes from A to Z. And when I follow a process, when you follow a process, you're going to have repeatable, predictable results. And this is what I want for you. It's why I do the training. Okay, so we got three main sections to go into in today's training. And I'm going to move pretty fast, but I think I got it locked down on just enough content to be in here. So the first thing I want to talk about is shaping the acquisition approach. This is where you go in and fundamentally what I'm saying is you're trying to get the government to make a whole bunch of decisions that when they make them, you'll reduce the competition you have to fight against. And it'll make it much easier for you to compete. Or in fact, it will make it possible for you to compete. Sometimes the government can make a decision and now you can't compete. You can try to get on a subcontracting team, but you can't compete as a prime. And so you want to shape the acquisition approach so that you can play in the game and then have the most likely chance to win. When I say reducing competition, a good example is set-asides. So the first example here I have for shaping the acquisition approach is getting the government buyer to determine a set-aside. Initially, when the government looks at an opportunity or requirement, they're saying, okay, we're going to go to the entire full and open supplier base, 300,000 businesses, let's say, right? There's about 300,000 businesses out there in the federal market. And if they decide to go to small business, they're shrinking it a little bit, but they're getting rid of some of the biggest competition, obviously. So they're getting rid of the large businesses, the billion-dollar contracting firms, when they come down to shaping it or setting it aside to a small business. But they can come down even further. If they go to small business, there's roughly 300,000 small businesses still, right? But when they go to HubZone, as an example, there's only about 5,000 firms. So you're going from 300,000 down to 5,000. And this ability to reduce the competition is huge. And it's the same things with these other ones, right? The women-owned small business, there's like 9,000 SBA certified women-owned small businesses in DSBS. And so that's the size of the pool, 300,000 down to 9,000. 8As have about 5,000, right? So that set aside is a big thing. Some of you may be familiar with, some of you may be 8A small businesses. Well, if you can get the government buyer to shrink that down even more to an 8A direct award, you're taking that competition from everybody down to one company, yours. So a direct award is in there. And you're eliminating all the competition that's out there. This is the idea of getting in there and shaping the acquisition approach. And I talk about in many other trainings how you can do it, but fundamentally it happens in the sources sought time frame. You get into the government responding during sources sought. I highly encourage you to build a group of competimates, other women-owned small businesses, for example, and let them know about sources sought so they too can respond. You're not collaborating on your responses. You're just collaborating on, hey, let's all respond and try to make this a woman-owned set-aside, and then we'll go toe-to-toe inside of the that set-aside. So anyway, set-aside is one way you could shape the acquisition approach. Another way, and this goes back to even making it possible for you to compete, is making sure that you push the contract to a contract vehicle of your choice, right? Obviously, the contracting officer is going to make this decision. But if you're in an agency where you've got a contract vehicle they use, then what you want to do is start talking to them early and often about using your contract vehicle. Business development is about building relationships and talking to people, including contracting officers, to make sure they are using STARS 3 or GSA Mass or, HCATS. HCATS is a contract vehicle that has 20 or 40 people on it, companies, compared to GSA Mass has a ton. 8A STARS 3 has 1,200 people. And so there's these different contract vehicles. But when you get the government buyer to think about putting it on the contract vehicle of your choice, you're both making yourself eligible to play by being on that contract vehicle, but also eliminating all the competition who aren't on that contract vehicle. Two other ones that are really creative ones I just want to mention your way is you can shape in the acquisition approach the NAICS code that the buyer is using. And I want to use this example. By the way, just keep in mind, when I keep saying you can shape this, you're shaping it through a conversation with the contracting officer. You're giving them the rationale and the data and evidence to make the decision to do what you want, right? But you got to give them a reason. You're not trying to hoodwink them or something. You're trying to say, this is why you should probably go this way. So I give you an example here with NAICS codes. Let's say there's a project out there that's a web design project. I want you to do a web design, web redesign so we can reach out to our customers and encourage them to participate, whatever. Reach out to our Air Force service members, airmen and guardians, and to have them participate. Well, that could be IT, right? Obviously, computers, website, or it could be marketing. And so an example here is, say they're thinking about maybe coming out on 541, 512. Well, the small business set aside or a small business size standard is 34 million for 541, 512. That means a company that is smaller than 34 million averaged over 5 years is considered a small business. And so they can compete against it. And if you're a $5 million firm or something, then your competition's a lot bigger because you got more people who are eligible to come in. And then the next code I put in is the one maybe I would encourage you to say, hey, why don't you use this buyer instead? Why don't you use 541613? You don't talk to them about the 19 million, right? That's what you want to do is bring it down to a size standard of 19 million. So anybody over 19 million will be considered a large business on that NAICS code. And so let's talk about these two descriptions really quick. Web design project. If you look at the two NAICS code descriptions, one says computer systems design, and the other is marketing consulting services. And so what I would be arguing for, if I was the smaller company, is I would be arguing that this is really a marketing consulting services, and the tech part of it is just a technology enabler to a marketing need. We want to market to our internal or external users to get them to do things. The way we'll do that is with paper or with a website or whatever, but it's still marketing consulting services. A website is a marketing tool. And so, you can make that case for that. And you can, when you're making that case, you can say it certainly is not a computer system. right? A computer system's a whole other thing. A web design project, just designing a intranet or extranet type web pages, those are just web pages. Those are just something on a system. And so you want to make that case. And that's a really important thing. Think about this also from the flip side. Throughout my entire training today, I'm going to go, you can go this way or that way, or up or down. But the idea is if you're a bigger company, make sure that some company is not able to push it down to 541613. Make sure that the NAICS code is going to come out on 541512. And the way you might do it is to show a bunch of other web design projects that were using that NAICS in their agency. So one way or another, you want to think about every decision that the government's going to make along the acquisition approach and go, what do I want, right? And then you use data and evidence to kind of push the government in the direction you want. The second example at the bottom about really creativeness is the FAR clauses. A lot of us just get an RFP and we take it and we move forward, right? But I don't want you to become an expert at the FAR. In fact, I always say, don't even bother with the FAR until you're making money. Then you can worry about the FAR. But the idea of the FAR is there's a couple of clauses in there that if you start learning these and paying attention to them, then you can figure out when to use them when you're talking with the government. So here's two examples that I have used. The first one is, and by the way, I don't claim even remotely to be a FAR expert. I'm good at using things, but there's other people who are FAR experts. But there's something in the FAR, and I put 16.4 here, but it's incentive contracts. And basically, I had a contract once with a customer, and they really had a pretty hard deadline on when they needed this IT work done. And so they wanted to penalize us if it wasn't done. And they were going to put something in. This is when I learned about this clause. I'm like, well, why don't you reward me if I get it done sooner? And so we were negotiating back and forth about that. And they were totally happy with that, because if they got it done sooner, then they could decommission this other site, save money on that, blah, blah, blah. So look into a FAR clause like the incentive contracts that reward you for better than expected services and penalize you, right? The risk and reward go back and forth between the buyer and seller. That's a win-win clause. I really like it. Another one is it's subpart 19 something here, right? But really it's the hub zone clauses. And one particular clause in there is the price preference for hub zones. And this is for full and open contracts. This is an important one to get put in to the contract. If you see something's going to be full and open, try to push for this clause to be in there. And if it's not, so that if the government is using, and I don't, again, want to go too deep into this, but if they're using price as a criteria for how they're making the decision, well, the price preference basically says if there's 10 offers and all of them come in at $1 million, everybody's offer except for the hub zone will go up by 10%. So 1,100,000, and the hub zone will be $1 million. So the hub zone will win out on the price there. All things being equal, they'll win. And so that's a clause. And so you want to pay attention to clauses in there that could fit for your company and be really attractive. Okay, so let's talk about the technical approach. By the way, I'm not looking at the chat, but I really will come back afterwards and try to respond to anything I see in there, including, hey, this is great, or thanks. But most importantly, if you got a question, throw it in. I'll come back. If you got thoughts on other ways to shape the acquisition or technical approach, let me know that as well. So the purpose of shaping the technical approach, when you're going in and doing capture, you're having conversations with the program office, it's really to minimize any weaknesses you have and maximize your company's strengths. So if you're really good at Microsoft and less good at Oracle, then minimize the need for Oracle and maximize the need for Microsoft. That's basically what it is. So I just got, in no particular order, some suggestions on technical approach shaping that you can do. One is, and this is my all-time favorite from my last company, is really push for oral evals. Get us to come in and have to talk with you and to bring our subject matter experts in. When we do that, we're able to talk to the work. And the way I rationalize this with the customers, I say, hey, avoid that bait and switch where they tell you in paper that they're really good, but then when you get the contract, it's a bunch of people with limited or no experience on the scope that you had. But if you force us to come in, at the very least, you will hear two different companies talk about their capabilities and their experience in there. And so I push for oral evals because it's a way for you to impress the buyer. Another thing is just aligning trends and best practices. And what I mean by this is you are the subject matter expert. The reason the buyer is looking out, the reason the federal government looks to industry is because We're the experts. They're the ones doing the job. The Army's mission is not to be experts on, Microsoft SharePoint or whatever, right? Their job is to go out and fight the nation's wars, fundamentally. So they need to do their mission. We need to be good at what we do, which is supporting their ability to do the mission. And so we're the ones who are tracking on all the things that are trending or best practices across the commercial, federal, and state and local markets. Best practices really get shaped. Those guys are just in their federal market, so they don't see it all. So you want to come in and talk to them. And here's an example that I have. It's something I'm using right now. In fact, I just posted something today, which made it even better. But I have a customer who's in the acquisition support services, and we're helping her get farther into government contracting shops to be able to support them. But one way we're going to differentiate her company is to be able to introduce the whole concept of using artificial intelligence, machine learning, and the AI tools that are out there in the acquisition approach, whatever level that is. Maybe it's something as simple as saying, how to rapidly evaluate proposals for compliance, basic shall statements or something automatically. So you don't even have to look at them. You can disqualify things automatically. So she doesn't know anything about artificial intelligence, but we've got other people in this community, maybe even here today, who are artificial machine learning experts. We can tie them together with her so she can go in there and bring the acquisition expertise together with her teaming partner doing the artificial intelligence, et cetera. So think about doing that. And it's something when you're shaping opportunities is you want to encourage the customers to talk to industry saying, well, tell me what AI experience you have in the acquisition world. Really? I don't have any. Like most of your competition will say, I don't have any. But if you can introduce trends and best practices, they'll see your opportunities differently. Bullet number 4, push for specific O&M and product manufacturers. My last company, there was this company called AvePoint that I was teamed up with. They made a great product that was an add-in product to Microsoft's products. And I had a partnership with them. I actually had partnerships with multiple companies, but they were my favorite because they were good. And so I would be able to go in and push for that specific company's products to be included, or the requirements that product could meet. I would have that put into the PWS, et cetera. And that's really important because when you start pushing for it, you push for the OEM or the products that you're really good at. If you're good at Splunk or Otis elevators or whatever it is, you want to push for that. One way that you can do this, and I don't know if I wrote it somewhere else, is you can, I used to go in and bring product comparisons. I would look at every one of these software companies, and I would see how they compare themselves against the competitors. And then I'd compile my own version of that and give it to the government and make the case for the manufacturer that I wanted them to use. And so that's something you could do. So you're shaping the opportunity to the manufacturer that you like best. One of the advantages for me when I did that was I had a strong partnership with this company that I could influence their next builds, meaning the next features they put into their products. That's how strong our partnership was. And we were able to say that when we responded in the proposal. There's some second tier requirements. I talk about elevate those up when you think about technical approach shaping. The example I'm using here is communication and outreach. I got a huge multi-million-dollar enterprise architecture contract at the Department of Homeland Security. And when I got it, the reason we got it wasn't our enterprise architecture expertise. It was because we talked about communication and outreach. DHS wanted to coordinate all these different offices and bring them together. And we said, this is what we're an expert at. Yes, we can do enterprise architecture, but you should really elevate this because any of us can do EA. But if you can't get people to listen to it, then what good is it? So we showed them how we could be different by doing that. And we elevated that second tier requirement to a vital importance. Tell us how you can address communication and outreach, not just tell us about EA. All right, the last one is I really want you to understand the pains. And this is just discussions, going in and sitting down with John or Jane and talking to them about the challenges and pains. And I don't mean in one meeting, hey, tell me your pains, but through a series of conversations over a matter of months, you will begin to understand truly what are the challenges they're facing, the goals, et cetera. And then you can weave them into the technical approach so that when you're writing a proposal with a technical approach, you're going back and you're we call it ghosting. You're ghosting those challenges and goals that you heard into your response. All right, so I'm moving pretty fast because I got 8 minutes left in this last major bullet I want to talk to, but you can get in, so you can shape the acquisition approach and you can shape the technical approach. Past performance is, generally a pretty solid criteria for awarding a contract, but you can influence the past performance criteria or how they see that, right? The formal or informal. And what I mean formal is they write it down in the RFP saying this is how we're going to evaluate past performance, or informal, getting them to think it in their heads. And so that's why this first bullet, I talk about communicating with the potential selection board members. A selection board basically is a bunch of people who will come together and look at your proposal and decide whether it's a winner or a loser, basically, right? And so you want to be able to talk with them and begin to influence them in their thinking. An example of past performance that you want them and the contracting officer to think about is pushing for agency experience. I used the Navy the other day, and I like using the Navy because it's so clear here. The Navy has people and bases on installations on land, and they have ships in the ocean, right? And so they call it a shore and a float. So pushing for that agency experience, if you have Navy experience, you want to push for that. You really want to drive through conversations with the KO and the program office. Hey, it's really important that that you're looking for a company that has this experience, so they don't waste 3 to 6 months at the start of a contract trying to figure out, how do they even get something to the boats or the ships or whatever they're called, right? They don't spend that time. So you're trying to emphasize that. The flip side is if you don't have that experience, you want to de-emphasize the need for that. You can say, hey, we have a team member who's got experience doing a float ashore. What we really bring is interagency experience. We bring the best lessons from the Army and DHS into the Navy so that you really have the Navy way based on experiences, lessons learned, and past performances from other agencies, right? So you're trying to emphasize it the other way. One way or another, right? You're going to, on all of these, it's up or down. The third bullet here is emphasizing larger past performances. If I'm a company that's larger, say I'm $30 million small business, I want to emphasize that to the contracting officer, it's really important as you're evaluating companies that they come in with $5 million or $10 million a year contracts. Whatever that is, or task orders, excuse me. They're used to managing task orders at like $5 million or more. So you're emphasizing a larger past performance that you're recommending the government consider, because then it's more similar to the scope of work, the size of work that this agency is putting out. Again, the flip side is if you're a smaller company or you have smaller past performances, you can say, hey, I know this is a $5 million contract, but really, even a $5 million firm fixed price task order, but really inside of that task order, and I had something like this where it's $5 million a year, but it was like 10 different projects, and you can talk to the KO about this or the program office to say, it's really less important that you have one big task order, but that you have people who have managed the project sizes that you expect to have. So that $5 million contract, we're really thinking that's going to be broken up into 8 to 10 projects of $500,000 a piece. And so that's what you're looking for past performances. We would encourage that you look for more experience there in smaller size projects. So that's bullet 3. Bullet 4 is suggesting, this one's really important, right? Is sometimes opportunities come out and you can only use the prime contractor's past performance. And so I want to encourage the ability to use subcontractor experience, at least one past performance. If I can do that, and then I team up with Booz Allen or somebody has really good past performance, we look really good. And so I want to push for that, especially if I don't have all of the past performances that would make me look great. I'd want to use a subcontractor, right? That's the whole reason I team, is that they've got good experience. And so if you're in that position, push to be able to use the subs experience. If you can do it all yourself and you're still going to use teammates, but you're still going to do it yourself, you want to push for, hey, the prime must have 3 past performances and blah, 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 but it must be the prime because teammates come and go, right? Now I'm switching how I'm rationalizing, right? Teammates, subcontractors, they come and go, anything could happen, but we are going to be here. So you really want the prime to be able to bring that experience. And so, in bullet number 4 here, you're referencing that you're trying to eliminate competition by saying, make sure the prime has it. And remember, everything you're doing with data and evidence. So the 5th one here is encourage the importance of written customer satisfaction. This is really important. If you can get written, if you have customers and you work them all the time, they like you and you're like, hey, I'm continuing to get more and more work out there. I need written customer satisfaction and written whatever those sheets are, past performance sheets from you, encouraging them to do it. If you're good at that and your customer likes you enough that they're like, yeah, I'll sit down, I'll write that, because usually they don't do it because they don't want to. It's not because they can't. They don't want to. They're too lazy. But if you've got a customer who's really good and you can get past performances really fast written down in the way the new buyer wants it from your existing or past customers, then you want to push for written customer satisfaction. Must be in CPARs or it must be here. If you don't have a lot of that, or if you have some customers, sometimes they just are difficult. Like I said, they don't want to do it. Then you want to minimize that, and you want to try to lean more on CPARs, or just really you should lean on CPARs since that's the official rating system, right? But one way or another, you're pushing on customer satisfaction. The last one is I really want you to push for proven ROI over size. So instead of a $5 million past performance, what you should be looking for is companies that can show that they saved this much money per year, or they reduced this much time, or they got the ammunition to the soldiers 20% faster, right? Some clear ROI on the projects they've done. Not that they've just come in, taken millions of dollars from us, given us IT stuff, and then left. It was like, what did we get? What happens if they never were here? Would we have been impacted? Well, proven ROI will demonstrate that. So you can do that again, prove it to the yes or prove it to the no. All right, in this training, we talked about shaping the acquisition approach. We talked about shaping the technical requirements and then shaping those past performance criteria. And this is the tip or task I want to leave for you. Go away, you or your colleagues, and build the list of what you want to shape in your opportunities when you're doing capture. Maybe you can't do everything I suggested. Maybe you have other ideas, but write that list down so that you can actually follow that when you're talking to the government buyer. Hey, I want to shape this. I want to shape that. You can use it as part of your capture plan, if you will. If you're getting value from our training, do me a favor, become a sustaining member so that you help more people get value from this. There's all sorts of thank yous that I put into the membership, but the true purpose of the sustaining membership is to make it available, make this available to everybody out there. If you're already getting traction within the federal government, you want to go to the next level, consider joining us in our BD Accelerator workshop. It's a 90-day program. You can just ping me on LinkedIn in messaging, and I'll tell you more about it. Remember, government contracting, it is not a secret. It's just a lot of fun and a process. I'll see you in the next time.